Hi, I'm Corrie, and so now that Sophie's taken you through how to make a Kahoot and what that looks like, I'm going to go through how you can then download that data from your Kahoot and use that to inform your teaching practice. As we discussed in our educational rationale for why Kahoot is a good resource to use. It's really great from the point of view of formative assessment. So, in order for that to be helpful, you need to be able to collect the data from your Kahoot in order to then use that to make evidence based decisions in your teaching. So, let's get to it. So, I'm going to pop down here to the internet and go to Kahoot. And obviously I'm not playing a game of Kahoot right now, so I'm going to click down here to go to getkahoot.com. And obviously if you've already made and used a Kahoot with students, you'll have an account. So here you go to sign in. And here's my personal Kahoot account. And now you're looking down this right hand side here. And you'll find this section, My Recent Results. So if you click on All Results, that will bring up all the time that the Kahoot has, all the times that the Kahoot has been played. So say if you had one Kahoot that you played with multiple classes, you'll have all of those classes data divided into different files for you, which is handy. So for me here now, I want to have a look at this Kahoot of Life in the Ottoman Empire. A bit of a background on this Kahoot that I created and used in the classroom. This was for a Year 8 history class, and it was a Kahoot that was done at the end of a unit. So this was a way to check their knowledge to see how they'd travelled, so it was revision, but as we've mentioned, it gamified that process, so it made it a bit more fun rather than getting them to sit down and answer the questions at the end of the chapter in the textbook, which they wouldn't really engage with, and it would be hard to keep them on task perhaps. So with this Kahoot, this was a great way to get a snapshot, formative assessment, to see how they'd gone with the content in the unit. So anyway, so we'll go to here to this little cloud and you click download and you wait for that to do its magic. Then I go up here to my downloads folder, double click on it, and as you can see, it then opens up in this beautiful pre-prepared Excel format for you. And look, that's one of the really great features of the way that Kahoot packages the data from your quizzes together for you. It's all in Excel, so it's really usable, and you can take that data out and use it in different ways. But if you don't want to get that complicated with it, it just gives you a good format to get a quick snapshot of looking at how your students travelled during that Kahoot. So the tab that we're looking at here is the first tab. So this is the overview. So this is a general overview of the entire Kahoot quiz itself. As you can see down here, down the left-hand side, you've got the names of all of the students. So you know whose results are whose. And all across here, you've got each of the questions that they answered and the answers they provided. So another point is that it has ranked all of the students in order from the highest performing student to the lowest performing student. And it also tells you, obviously in this quiz there were 7 questions. But as you can see down here, this student's got 1 correct answer, 3 incorrect answers. So that tells you that they didn't even attempt to answer the other ones. So now if we're having a look down here, you can see in this field you've got overall performance from the quiz. So this is the whole class's performance on this Kahoot quiz. We've got percent total correct answers, which is 58%. So look, as the first snapshot to see how they were going, this is fine, but obviously I wouldn't want them going into an exam without having reviewed these answers, revised what they got wrong, really using that data, because 58% correct for the whole cohort, that's fine, but I'd probably, for something that was low stakes, only 7 questions long, immediately after the content they'd learnt, you'd really want them to be on top of things a bit more. But that's why we do a Kahoot, because this gives me a chance as a classroom teacher to go, okay, just as a quick snapshot, if these areas up here are going to be areas that I need them to say complete an end of unit test on, or complete greater assessment on, I'm going to need to do a bit more work with this class in order to kind of bring up their knowledge and their recall of these key facts to do with the Ottoman Empire. So before I move on to the next tab that we're going to look at, I can show you a little quick way you can work with some of this data. So obviously, if I want to, I've got the percent for the whole class down here, how much they got right. But if I want to see at a quick glance what percentage of the questions that each student got right, this is a good way to do it. So you click up here on this column and you go insert. So it inserts you a spare column, so that gives you a bit of space to work with. Now if I click in here and I go equals, and I click on the correct answers, divided by, and there were 7 questions in this Kahoot, so it's divided by 7, times 100, and this helps me work out my percent. So I know that this student got 100% right. Yay, good job. Now a quick trick, so that I don't have to do that formula for every one of these, I can just get this little cross up here, click on the corner, and I can drag it down, and the formula will replicate itself for all the other students. For those of you not too familiar with Excel, a way you can make this look a bit neater rather than all those numbers after decimal points, go up here, and this will reduce the number of decimals. So great. So now, I can see 100%, 86%, 71%, all the way down to 14% correct. And look, if you're a real stickler for formatting, you can highlight all of that and add in the percent. Oh, except that doesn't seem to have worked. So maybe don't try that one. Maybe let's just undo it. So yes, so we know that this is 71%, 57%, and so on. Another quick point when we're looking at this page, another really great thing about the way that Kahoot formats this data when it downloads it is of the conditional formatting over here. So you can see at a quick glance visually how much the students got right and how much got the wrong. So all of the correct answers are in green and all the incorrect ones are in red. So very quickly I can see that this question here, this area about slaves, and if they had a child by their master, the status of the child was, I can see that in general, pretty much all of the class except for one got that correct. Whereas I can see over here that something like the term Bedestan was quite tricky. I can see a lot of red. So that's really nice, even if I don't want to really drill down into that data, but I can just quickly look and I can see visually straight away, where my class was sort of sitting. So let's move on to the second tab. Now this is ratings. Look, it depends how you use the Kahoot in your classroom. The ratings for the quiz come up right at the end. In my experience when I've used Kahoot, I haven't really focused on getting the students to give feedback on the Kahoot, but this might be something that you want to do. And so the questions that I asked was, how fun was it? Did you learn something? Do you recommend it? And also a quick one they can answer, they've got thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. But yeah, look, so that's a feature that you can use if you're interested in it, if you want to get feedback on your Kahoot to see how engaged your students were, if they felt they learnt something, which is great feedback for you as a teacher, I guess. So then moving on down here to the rest of the tabs, you've got each of your individual questions broken down. So if we look at question 1, again, now, sometimes there's this text is all kind of squished up. So you can just go up here to the columns and you can double click, and that will expand all your fields out so that you can read everything. So for this question here that we're having a look at, the Quran recognized slaves as a legitimate source of labor, but recommended they be treated, that's one, with kindness, which is the correct answer, which you can tell because Kahoot's kindly put it in green for you. They should be treated violently, they should be treated like princes, or they should be treated with indifference. So at a glance, again, I can see that really only half of the class got this correct. So obviously, if I was going to be recommending revision to students, if I was going to be creating some kind of revision class with them, I would be having a look again at the issues of how the Quran talks about slaves within Ottoman society, if this was really an important aspect that I wanted them to really get to grips with. Another really good thing here is that it tells you the average speed that this question was answered with. So we can see here that with the students that got the right answer right, they pretty much got it right straight away. They got it done within 5 seconds. We can see up here that the students who wait a little bit longer and then took a guess, because we've got up to 11 seconds, 10 seconds. Again, we can go down and see what the individual students answered this question. So I can see this student here got it wrong. Greens in the middle got it right. And we can see how long it took them to answer. Again, so you've got all the seconds elapsed, where you can see down this column here. If you want to go a bit deeper into this kind of data analysis, look, when you're looking at this thing, for example, with the greens, the students that got it right very quickly. Obviously 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 3, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. But an interesting one here is, while we could say, oh, the student got it right, obviously he knows what he's talking about. If we look over at the time that it took him 22 seconds almost. So that would say to me, he may have got it right, but he didn't really know it. That was a guess. So when you are working with, a multiple choice format like Kahoot, for example, there is a likelihood that students will guess and get it right. So that's where being able to break down this data is really good, because, if I go tick, 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 yep, he's all good with, this part of what the Quran says about slaves. But when I have this data, I can actually say, I don't think he's that great with it, because, it did take him 22 seconds, which looks like a guess. So, that's one benefit of being able to break this data down as much as you can. And then, clicking through the other questions, I can see here that, for the issues of if a slave had a child by their master and how the child was considered in Ottoman society, we can see that most students got this correct, 96% of the students. So, yep, if I was putting together, revision for these students again, I probably wouldn't feel the need to go back over this in much depth, but, I might want to address that learning with, this individual student here. Question 3, we've got the same kind of thing. Question 4, and so you can click through all of your questions. And so how can you use this data once you had it? So, I've been talking through a little bit, but obviously you can use it if this test was, at the end of a unit or at the end of some learning. You can use this to decide, what revision you need to set. So you can target your revision to your class. So rather than, kind of getting them to revise all the content again, picking questions that you like the look of, if you've been smart with your Kahoot, you can really look and see, actually, these are the areas that the class are really fuzzy on. There's probably the things that would warrant a bit more teaching before the next assessment. Otherwise you could give students their answers. So obviously in the class they've already had the winner board and everyone's been really excited. But you could actually, print off, a student's answers. You can copy and paste these results, Q1, Q2, Q3 individually into another spreadsheet, and you could print that for a student so then they can see what questions exactly they got right and wrong. Or, you could always run another Kahoot. So once you've worked out, where students have gone wrong, you could suggest to them, okay, we're going to have a Kahoot rematch on the Ottoman Empire, for example. You could suggest a few pages in the textbook that they've been working from, for example, that they go back over and revise in the first, 20 minutes to half an hour of the class. And then you say, okay, and then the rematch is going to be towards the end of the lesson. And so you create another Kahoot that might cover new content with some of the older content, with the answers that they got wrong. And then you run the Kahoot again, and then you download the data again, and you can see, if there were any changes in, the responses. So I think that's about enough from me about the Kahoot and the data. But yeah, so that's it. Thank you.